call. This is your last one and a courtesy call. Hey, yeah, it could be danger up in this club. When we get started, we ain't.
Alright guys, we are back and we're going to be talking about the colors in One Piece. I know I already recorded a starter deck video and a set 1 video, but I wanted to make videos that are a little bit more consumable, especially for people that want to build specific decks, not just like all the decks such as myself. Today we're going to be talking about all the cards in red. I know that we have those limited starter deck tournaments with like promos coming up soon for some people that were able to get their hands on starter decks, as well as, you know, set 1 coming in December. And while we're all in the waiting room, we might as well start planning for how we want to play, what kind of decks we want to build. We've already taken a look at some results. We've also made a video on that on the channel with a big tournament and the results there. And now that I have a better understanding of this game, I feel like I can share the knowledge that I've gained by playing a lot more, and it would give me a better perspective of like how I feel about some of the cards coming in set 1 and how I would play if I were to be playing in these limited tournaments. We're gonna be doing red, but obviously if you guys like this kind of content, we can do the rest of the colors as well. So let me know by telling me in the comments, maybe dropping a like, sharing, all that good jazz. So yeah, let's go ahead and hop right into it. We're going to do a quick overview of the starter decks because obviously for those limited tournaments, and most people know what the starter decks do, so I'm not going to talk too much about them. Just kind of the specific value. Obviously we have Luffy that can give rested Dawn to a character, which does the exact same thing as Nami, who is one of your best cards in the deck, who can also give you rested Dawn to a character to really add to the aggression. This is the definition of aggression. You play down bodies with big numbers and you swing with big numbers because you can use your rested Dawn to make your guys bigger, and we have a few rush units, and that's the name of the game. Okay, sorry for the cut there, but we're back. Okay, we got Usopp. Usopp is relatively worthless, obviously. We don't have to talk about that. It's a 1k counter. Vanillas are vanillas. I mean, vanillas in the starter deck are not bad. Like having 2 cost, and from my opinion, the 2 cost 4,000 vanilla is decent. You can play it like turn 1 if you go second, and then just dawn it up and swing with it the following turn. 5k is not bad. 6k. The vanillas aren't bad at all, but like the 1 cost vanillas probably not my favorite. Rush is good. This is okay. Just being able to dawn 2 when attacking, give something extra power is decent, or dawn 1 I should say, which, you know, is good for setting up your board. Obviously it's a little slow because when attacking and you're not rush, obviously you want your blocker. We already talked about Nami. Robin we already talked about. The deck is relatively easy to build. You just play 4 of all the good cards, and then you play a few vanilla so that you have counters. Some combination of Vivi, Frankie, and Robin, generally. And then you want to play 4 Brook, even though Brook's ability is not super great. It's a 2k counter is 2k counter. Obviously we have some Luffy because of Rush. Zorro is another really powerful card. Comes in, give it a Dawn, which gives it another power, so 7,000 power for a 3 cost body is pretty decent. Guard point, Jet Pistol, you play maybe like 1 or 2 Diablo Jumbo just to help close out the game. Same with 1000 Sunny, you don't want to play too many of the 1000 Sunny. And then of course we have some promos. This is, I don't know, I just don't think this card's very good. 6 cost, Dawn 2 to Rush, versus a 5 cost with inherent rush. A little bit weaker, but you could like dawn to it anyways to make it unblockable. It's 1 less cost, and I think it's generally better. This one doesn't have a counter either, so it doesn't really have any saving grace outside of just being a rush guy for having more rush units in the deck. So you can always add it if you feel like you need more rush units in the deck. And then I Can Smell Adventure, just generally not a good card. If you know Yu-Gi-Oh, you know Reload, and nobody plays Reload for a reason. So yeah, that's everything as far as starter decks go. Hopefully you weren't super confused, but I do have a video where I go over the starter decks. You can look at that. Now we're going to go a little bit more in depth about the red cards in the set 1, because that's what's more interesting to me and more interesting to a lot of people as well. Zorro is a pretty good leader, honestly. All your characters gain 1,000 power for 1 Dawn on him. Compare that to Luffy, who can give 1 rested Dawn, 1 rested Dawn to a character. You give 1 unit an extra 1,000 power. This gives all your units except for itself an extra 1,000 power. And of course it will have an extra 1,000 power during your turn. So because of the Dawn one. So this is really good if you want to add aggression, because now your rush guys just became a lot stronger by 1,000, which is relevant whenever it comes to dodging counters. So as far as red leaders go, obviously this one's really good. Law is super good for combo plays. We're gonna go over green in the next video, but being able to bounce if you have five characters, not five or more characters, return one of your characters to your hand and play a cost 5 or lower character of a different color. As a return character from your hand. So obviously there's a lot of good cards that can restand. Stuff like obviously Law from the starter deck, and there's some other green cards which we'll go over in the green part of the video. But being able to put one of your like maybe rested Nami, put it back into your hand, and then there's a few cards that you can put back into your hand that are good to be rested, and there's a lot of cheap stuff that you can play in this deck too. Like you can play stuff like Otama being a 2k counter that you can then on play give something minus 2000 power and then put it back in your hand, and now you have that counter back in your hand while weakening a unit that you can then attack over, or weakening a blocker, stuff like that. There's a lot of good that you can do with Law, which makes it's great for combo builds, and it's only 2 costs. 2 costs of play down cards that can restand your stuff is really nice. So Law is great. Of course, you have 4 life, so you got to give and take there. But I really do like both of these leaders. Luffy, I also enjoy, but I have to test more Luffy before I'm super confident in it. Luffy is a cost 4 to set one of your cost 5 or lower characters to active and give it an 1000 extra power. So Kid, the green leader, is really similar. Costs 3 to restand itself, and then you have to discard a card. And that discard a card in a game where you're only getting 1 draw per turn, and there's not that much like extra draw power in the game either, is pretty heavy. But this, for 4 costs, 1 extra cost in Dawn to restand one of your characters, has to be cost 5 or lower. So usually you're going to be restanding a rush guy late game. Oops, sorry about that. I should probably move this. But that aside, being able to, like, just looking at the starter deck alone, you could restand Sanji. It's also a green card as well, so you can restand other cards such as, what's that, Hawkins, I believe. It's cost 5 or less. Yeah, cost 5 or less. You can restand X Drake, and obviously some of the other extra green cards, which we'll go over in the video today. We're going to be focusing on red. But yeah, being able to restand some of these guys and give it extra power is just pushing for kill turn, right? Which is nice for sure. I think out of all of them though, obviously this Law is probably the best one. But I do think this Zorro is super strong and needs to see more play. If you're looking for pure aggro and you want to play like a red deck, Zorro is great, and Luffy's pretty good too. None of these leaders so far have been particularly bad, so we like that now. Now we can talk about the rest of the cards. We have an Usopp here, 2k counter, which immediately makes it interesting. After your opponent activates an event, draw 1 card. Now we do have a few more 2k counters in this set, so out of all the 2k counters, this is probably my least favorite one, because it's during your turn, which means your opponent has to play a counter for you to draw a card, which is, I mean, like unless it's like a kill turn, they're probably not going to play that counter. So his card advantage is pretty big in this game. So not a huge fan of that card, but the 2k counter is always nice. Uta's a cool card. On play, return up to 1 red character other than Uta with a cost of 3 less from your trash in your hand. Recycling is nice. It's no counter, so it's going to be tough to fit in a card that has no counter, but recycling is super nice in this deck. Otama is a 2k counter that's really powerful and definitely like a 4 of in a lot of red decks. The 2k counter by itself is great, but on play, give one of your opponent's character minus 2000 power during the turn is super strong, because that means that you can beat over more units without the need to don up as much or dedicate more power to your board. And also 2k counter, and if you play this in something like Law, you can put it back in your hand, and then you can hard play it again because it's a 1 cost. It's not once per turn or anything like that. Caribou, pretty worthless on KO up to one of your opponent's characters. You can KO one of your opponent's characters with 4000 power or less. Not very proactive, so not very good. Cavendish is another rush guy, but the sacrifice of a life doesn't feel that great, so I wouldn't recommend playing it. Same, and these are just vanillas. We don't really care about these vanillas, especially like 2k 3000 power with a trigger to play. Like, triggers are not very reliable, so I wouldn't worry about these cards, Komochio, anything like that. We do have Gordon, though, which is another 2K counter. And on play, you can place one card from your hand at the bottom of the deck to draw a card. This is great filter while also being a 2K counter. So this is a pretty good card. We'll have to see in practice when it comes to, as far as deck building goes. Like, you have to obviously compete to see what's going to be played in the deck. But of every 2K counter in the game, so far, Otama and Gordon are some of the best we've seen so far as red goes. Sai is another vanilla. We have Sanji here, another 2K counter, which we have. Can I make it switch sides? There we go. Once per turn, take 1 life. This character gains 2,000 power, and then give 2 of your Rested Dawn to this character as well. So, I mean, 2K counter is good, and it comes in the following turn as a super big body at the cost of a life. Because what is that? That's plus 4,000, so 7,000 on a 2K body is decent. Maybe like as a tech one-off to become really powerful the following turn, but as a 2K counter, like the other ones are probably a little bit better. Yeah, that's what I think for sure. Although the artwork for Sanji, oh boy, that's some good artwork. We got Jinbei, no counter on this one, but it is a blocker. And on block, you may play a red character with the cost of 2 or less from your hand. It's all right. I mean, being able to play a Uta from hand to weaken something is pretty decent, but 4 costs for a blocker, it has to take a Dawn as well. Not super great. We got Chopper here. Dawn 1 when attacking. You may trash 1 card from your hand up to 1 Straw Hat card with a cost of 4 or less from your trash your hand. That's pretty okay. You have to trash 1 to do it. 4,000 it probably won't find any space in the deck, but it's not terrible. Of course, we have Nami, and Nami stays having the best cards in the game with absolutely stunning artwork. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Reveal 1 Straw Hat Crew type card other than Nami and add it to your hand. So this is any card, not just units. Gotta keep that in mind. And you can. This is another reason why stuff like Law or Luffy is good. You can play this Nami, bounce it back into your hand and play a different green card while then playing this again and looking for more filter. So generally pretty good card, pretty much a 4 of, I'd say. Was also being 1,000 counter, pretty decent. We have Robin, another excellent card. Dawn 1 when attacking, KO one of your opponent's characters with 3,000 power or less. So pretty much all the small techie cards and small blockers you can KO by attacking while also being a 4,000 body, which means on Dawn 1 you're going to be 5,000 body. So you don't lose anything from attacking other than the fact that you're probably going to get KO'd the following turn. So excellent card. Definitely some account goes into the main for sure, because being able to blow up like small blockers as well as like things like Bonnie from the starter deck. I'm trying to say more things that are like starter deck relevant as opposed to set relevant, because I want to go over set stuff as it goes on. But yeah, being able to KO like smaller things while also attacking and doing damage potentially is really strong. Excellent card. Haryuden, 4K, 6K, 4 6K body. Not a big deal there. I mean, once we get to the main set, you're not really worried about vanillas anymore. You have plenty of, it's just quiet. You have plenty of other cards that are going to do damage while also having decent effects. So we're not really worried about the vanillas, especially once set 1 comes out. Only in Star Deck meta do we care about the vanillas, really. So this one's a blocker. Dawn 2, this character gains 3,000 power during your opponent's 2. So 2,000, but really it's like a 2 cost, 2,000 cost blocker. But 4,000 for 4 costs, so, or 5,000 for 4 costs, it's pretty mediocre. Because like, yeah, you're gonna have to attach Rested Dawn. Maybe in a deck like starter deck Luffy where you can use your Rested Dawn more often, but probably not super great. We already have a 1 cost blocker in starter deck Chopper, so it'd be nice to have more blockers in red that are decent, but none of the blockers we've seen so far are decent, so. But there's something in case you need it. We have Hyogoro. You may rest this character. One of your leader or one of your characters gain 2,000 power for the turn. Not super great. Frankie's another excellent card though. Dawn 1, this character can attack your opponent's active character. So you just have this 4,000 body that's ready to kill anything that comes into play. This card is insane. It doesn't have a counter. So unlike, I think Robin, yeah, Robin has a counter, so you can play 4 of Robin, feel pretty comfortable. Frankie doesn't have a counter, so you're not as comfortable playing a 4 of, but it's just so strong. Like I could see you playing a 4 of for sure. Brook, when attacking up to 2 of your opponent's characters, minus 2,000 power for the turn. That doesn't matter as much because you have to attack, so it's a lot slower. So not a huge fan of Brook. Marco is a vanilla. We have the super rare Luffy. Dawn 2, this character can't be KO'd when battling strike attribute characters, so that's nice. I'm not super sure how relevant that is, but it's not terrible. And then once per turn, give this character up to 2 of your rested Dawn cards. So 2 cost body that can pretty much be 5 costs every turn because you're giving them rested Dawn. Not terrible, not the best. I don't know how many you'd play if you'd play it at all. I personally don't think I'd play this card. If anything, I'd play it as a 1-up, just because it's a decently standard body that has a nice niche to not be able to be knocked out by strike characters, but like we're seeing a lot of things that aren't strike already in the game, so I'm not super impressed by that. But I am impressed by a 3-cost rush Zorro. That is for sure. It's just a 3-cost rush unit with 5,000 attack. Like, that's just a good card. It doesn't have a counter, but as far as rush units go, this is probably the best one. Like, this is probably better than Sanji. Sanji is 2 costs, but it takes 2 Dawn to do it from the starter deck. And once again, just gorgeous artwork. I love the alt arts in this game. Now we have a few counters. We got Red Hawk here. One of your guys get 4,000 power. Then KO one of your opponent's character with 4,000 power or less. This is actually pretty decent for the fact that it can KO something. It does cost 2, but when you play a rush deck, especially in the late game, you usually don't have as many cards that you want to play, so you're not super concerned with using all of your Dawn, but it does kind of reduce your capability of playing aggro, which is what you want to do in red. So 50-50 on this card, but being able to, as a counter, KO like a blocker or something, or like one of their weaker guys, is pretty nice. But they can play around this by just attaching a Dawn to a unit that they don't want to die. Like if they have a 4,000 character unit and they don't want it to be KO'd, then they just attach a Dawn to it before they attack, and then the counter doesn't do anything. So it can be played around if your opponent's smart about it, but like it's definitely like a stop an attack plus stop another unit kind of guy, which is really nice. This is round table. Give one of your opponent's characters minus 1,000 power for the turn, or minus 10,000 power for the turn. Once again, it's not like Digimon where like if they get to 0 power they get knocked out. It's just they're weaker, so you can beat over them easier. So I'm not super concerned about that. Green Star Rafflesia. Counter, give your opponent or leader minus 2,000 power for this turn. Give one of your opponents or leader minus 2,000 power for the turn. Pretty mediocre. It's probably better to just increase your own guys, right? Yeah, I'm not super impressed by this card, but maybe it's super cool in a niche situation. Like if we ever get a deck that's all about having effects based on how weak your opponent's cards are, could be decent. Radical Beam, I'm super impressed by. Your leader or one of your characters gains 2,000 power for the turn. Then if you have 2 or less life, this card gains an additional 2,000 power for the turn. And then its trigger is your leader or up to one of your characters gains 1,000 power for the turn. Also, I mean for the battle, obviously, not the turn. When it comes to reading the effects, I'm sorry, I'm saying turn. That actually is very different because of the turn means something like this, where they just have it continuously until the turn ends. Well, this is just for the battle, of course. Now, this is good because, I mean, like, it's like 4,000 extra power for 1 cost. When you only for being at 2 or less life is excellent. Probably your best counter in the deck. The other one is 3,000 power from the Straw Hat one, I believe. Yeah, just something gets 3,000 power. Another excellent card. These are both really good counters if you're looking to have good counter cards, because like obviously you want to be loading up on units that have good counters, but there's only so many good counters in this deck. In red, I should say, because most of the good cards, most of the 2,000 counter cards are terrible, and most of the good cards in red do not have counter. So being able to circumvent that by adding more powerful counters like Red Hawk, Radical Beam, and Guard Point, pretty decent. And then we have In 2 Years to Sabaody. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal Straw Hat type card, character card specifically, and add it to your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of the deck. This is just a bootleg Nami. At least Nami is a body. Like you can attach 3 Dawn to it and swing. So definitely not as good as Nami. And Nami's also a counter. So that's it for all the red cards for the time being. It definitely got a lot darker between when I started recording and now. But hopefully this is a little bit more of a consumable video for you guys to watch. And you guys let me know if you have any differing opinions or if you thought about anything that I didn't mention. Or maybe in your testing you found that you really like some of these vanillas because you like being able to hard play something for cheap that it has big stats, which is definitely like a solid argument, especially in red and out of all colors. And let me know if you guys have tested any of these leaders and you just find that you really like Luffy. I haven't tested Luffy a lot, so my opinions are very much meh on Luffy, because for 4 cost, that seems pretty hefty to restand something. But like when your deck is all about restanding and attacking really quickly, definitely not a bad card at all. But then again, this is red-green, which is different than just red, where I think Zorro is amazing and not being represented as much as I would like. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, share all the good jazz, and I'll see you guys next time.